Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode, and it is Newcastle against Everton, the final day of the Premier League season. It's all or nothing for Champions League football. But firstly, there's one thing we need to talk about because Newcastle United have released their latest kit for next season, and it is a thing of beauty. I'm loving that blue trim. It looks fresh, it looks clean. That kit is deserving of Champions League football. You know what? I don't usually buy kits. I'm not a kit kind of guy, but I like that. I might actually buy that. It's fresh. It's clean. Oh, look at Bruno. Look at that knee. Even that knee's fresh and clean, even though it's not wearing the kit. JL, I wish he was playing on Sunday, but I think that's a clean kit. Thoroughly deserving of Champions League football. And speaking of Champions League football, we've got a game to win on Sunday. So this is a preview to Everton. And I want to start by looking at the final day, who's got who, and what the outcomes we have. The beauty about Newcastle United, we're in the best position. Our destiny lies on ourselves. We don't have to rely on any other result. If we win, we get Champions League football. We beat Everton, we're in the top tier of European football. And like I've just mentioned, this kit is deserving of Champions League football. It's a thing of beauty. It's fresh. The collar's nice. The blue isn't too much blue, but it's there. It's visible. Oh, it's lovely. There's a lot of things that can happen this Sunday. But like I've just mentioned, the beauty about Newcastle United, we beat Everton, we get Champions League football. That's going to bring a lot of pressure. You know what? These are footballers. This is what they've got. This is why they got into football, to play the elite competition, to play with pressure, to really achieve something special. And that's what Newcastle United can do on Sunday, because this season, with winning the trophy, our first major trophy in 70-odd years, and getting Champions League football, that is absolutely an insane season, probably the best season Newcastle have ever had, especially in my lifetime. But to win a trophy, finish in the Champions League, considering all the adversities we've had, PSR trying to kick us up the backside, we've had Eddie Howe having pneumonia, we've had players injured, we've got a depleted squad, and our future is still in our destiny for Champions League football. And we went deep in a competition and won a trophy. What an insane season. So no matter what happens on Sunday, win, lose or draw, because Everton are a good side, especially under David Moyes. I'm proud of these boys. I seriously am. And Eddie Howe has got to be in contention for manager this season. I know Slot will get it because that's the way football works. But Eddie Howe, considering we haven't signed anyone for our senior team in the past 3 windows, we've won a trophy, we've competed with the best, we went 11 straight games in the Premier League winning, and we've 1 game away from Champions League football. That is absolutely excellent from Eddie Howe and the players. They both deserve credit. Aston Villa go to Man United. They've got a terrible record at Man United. And the beauty about this, Nottingham Forest and Chelsea play each other. So one of them, if not both of them, is going to drop points. I do believe Man City will win at Fulham. I just think they'll get a result there, because Fulham have got nothing to play for, whereas Man City have. They're quite experienced. Kevin De Bruyne's last game, I can just see Man City win. But when it comes to that Aston Villa game, I thought to myself, if Man United win the Europa League, they're going to be on high. They're going to be full of confidence. But Man United got beat. Now, they're either going to go to Old Trafford and play within themselves, because the fans will get in the back and it'll just not be, it'll be like a black cloud surrounding Old Trafford. And then Aston Villa have got the players to beat anybody. So that's going to be interesting. But Aston Villa do have a poor record at Old Trafford. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think Aston Villa have beaten Man United in the past 5 meetings. So they've got a terrible record against Man United as it is. And then Forest against Chelsea, look, that can go either way in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting, but it might even come down to goal difference. And another thing about goal difference, we're actually in a healthy position because we've got a huge margin over Aston Villa and we're 2 goals ahead of Chelsea. So Chelsea really need to beat Forest. If we beat Everton, Chelsea need to beat Forest by 3 or more goals. I know there's 2 difference, but let's say we beat Everton 1-0. Chelsea need to beat Nottingham Forest by 3 goals to jump ahead of her. So we're in a healthy position. As long as we beat Everton, guarantee Champions League football. Having said that, Everton really picked up under David Moyes, and that's their statistics under David Moyes this season. Played 18 games in the Premier League, won 7, drew 7, and only lost 4. So they've picked up 28 points in that time and are averaging 1.56 points per game, which is actually very, very impressive considering they were diabolical under Sean Dyche. So what has David Moyes changed at Everton to be so successful? Because it's the same teams, it's still the same profile of players. So I'm going to tell you exactly what he's changed. And it's not too much, but just slight tweaks, because he sets up in the same formation. David Moyes sets up pretty much how Sean Dyche set up, and that was a 4-3-2-1. However, the style of play and the philosophy of the system is a little bit different. So they still want to be progressive, but they don't get the ball as forward as quickly as it did under Sean Dyche. So they try to have a little bit more control, a little bit more composure and calmness in possession rather than just route one all the time. And that's shown in the statistics. You can barely see it, but passes attempted per 90 is went up under David Moyes, and touches in the middle third is went up under David Moyes. So that just tells me that they're playing through the lines a little bit more. They're pumping the ball into midfielders and allowing the midfielders to get on the ball. That could actually benefit Newcastle because we go to a man-to-man press. So if they keep the ball on the ground and are less direct, we can get in their faces, overturn the ball higher up the pitch. Therefore, we'll have a better opportunity of creating better chances. So what do they do in possession? Well, wingers play a massive role in David Moyes' tactical setup. So with their wingers inverting, this allows them to overload the midfield. But what they do very cleverly under David Moyes is their fullbacks are very aggressive. So they're creating 4-3-4 against 3 in midfield because they have a box shape where it's 2 sitting midfielders, 2 attacking midfielders when they come inside, but also allow their fullbacks to get high and wide, creating 2v1s, overloads on the right-hand side. And he has exactly an image against Liverpool this season where you can see Mykolenko getting around Jack Harrison. So for this reason, they're pumping more crosses into the penalty area. So we need to be wary of that. Big Dan Burn needs to eat up those headers. Fabian Shaw, Sven Botman, whoever's playing at centre-back needs to be prepared to win the ball when crosses are delivered. So the fullbacks are the players that provide width for Everton. But the key thing that David Moyes has done that Sean Dyche didn't, and it's very simplistic, the play to the player's strengths. Iliman Ndiaye tucks inside, finds pockets of space, creating overloads, 4 against 3 centrally, whereas Doucouro's been given more freedom to attack the box, and he's a big fella. And that's why they're pumping in more crosses, because they're trying to get him to arrive in the box late and get more goal scoring opportunities. And off the ball, they defend quite similar to what Newcastle do. They're not a big presser like Newcastle, but in terms of shape wise, they're quite similar to what Newcastle do. So when the opposition are playing around their back four, they're set up in a 4-4-2 shape. Once the opposition bypasses the first line of press, maybe the second line of press, and enter that final third, they revert to a 5 at the back. That's quite similar to what Newcastle do, where we are initially a 4-4-2 defensive shape, and then if the opponents get into our half or into our final third, then we revert to a 5 at the back. But you know what you're going to expect with Everton. They're going to be compact, difficult to beat. They're going to give up possession and defend against the ball, and then they're going to try and catch her on the counter-attack. So I expect Newcastle to have more of the ball in this game. So it's up to us to break Everton down. We need to be clever. We need to move off the ball quickly, and we need to move the ball quickly. Don't dwell on the ball, because as soon as you slow the game down, that allows Everton to get back in their shape, and they're very, very compact, very organised when they're in their shape. So how did Newcastle counteract this, and what can we expect from Newcastle? Well, personally, I would revert back to a 4-3-3. I think playing with a 5 at the back is too defensive against a team like Everton, because they're going to be compact. If we're compact as well and look to defend the whole game, then it's just going to be a boring 0-0 fizzled out game of football, and nobody wants that. We want it to be high paced, good intensity, and try and catch out Everton out of their structure. So Everton are going to come to St James's Park. They're going to be hard to break down, and they're going to pick their moments and when to transition quickly and look to counteract us on the break. So again, if we do lose possession, we're going to have to work hard to try and win possession back. But we do need a quick start. We need to play with intensity, something like we're seeing against Arsenal, because we created a lot of opportunities in those first opening 20 minutes against Arsenal. And I've got no doubt if we did that against Everton, we're probably more likely to score a goal. But you all know Jordan Pickford, he's going to have the game of his life, because that's just football, right? When somebody that used to play for your rivals, coming to your stadium, either has an absolute stinker and the crowd laughing at him, or he has an absolute blinder and we can't get past him. But the main reason why we need to start quickly is because we need to get the crowd behind our team. If you want, you can actually go to St James's Park early, and if you show your ticket, you get 2 free drinks. Not just 1, 2 free drinks. So make sure you go and get them down your neck, get excited, get the adrenaline going, and get behind the team, because we'll need a 12th man this game. And I've got no doubt if we start early and get an early goal, that'll just settle the nerves, but it'll also create unbelievable atmosphere. I'm a firm believer that the players also play a huge part in the atmosphere, because they need to give the fans an incentive to get behind the team, whether that be a strong tackle in the first minute, whether that be being direct and getting them behind in the first minute. Let the fans know that today we're up for it, And that's what we need to do at St James's Park on Sunday, because the sooner we pressure Everton, squeeze Everton and force Everton backwards, they're going to think we don't want this today. They've had their celebration. They've had their send-off to Goodison Hall. I'm hoping Everton are just come to St James's Park like, we don't need to win this game. Let's just get through this 90 minutes. That's what I'm hoping from Everton. I know they're going to be disciplined. They're going to work a little bit hard, but I expect them, I hope they're a little bit lackluster. So what I'm trying to say is, if we play our natural game, we're the better side, and that's proven by the league table, we'll win this game of football. Everton and Moyes use their fullbacks aggressively to provide their width, so that leaves space in behind to exploit. So let's be a little bit clever. Let's create 2v1s on the outside, try and get our fullbacks overlapping, whether that be Tino or whoever plays a fullback. The midfield battle will be key though, because Everton are really compact and physical centrally. So we need to do two things. We need to be brave and committing bodies forward, because that forces them backwards, but we also need to match their physicality and intensity. And finally, Alexander Isak might not play. It's questionable. I actually believe that he didn't play against Arsenal because we're wanting to save him for this game against Everton, because if he gets an opportunity, he's clinical. And I kind of feel like we didn't let Arsenal slip away as a game. We still tried hard and we're definitely in the game, but I kind of feel like Eddie Howe had his mindset on beating Everton when it comes to Alexander Isak. But if he doesn't play, I fully expect Anthony Gordon to play as a false nine. So if that does happen, we need to have runners around him, because he needs to get the ball and link up play and have players to combine with and bounce off. So we need Barnes tucking inside, playing off Anthony Gordon. We need Bruno advancing to combine with him. Movement can cause so many disruption to Everton's compact defensive shape. So how do I expect the teams to line up? Well, to be honest, I haven't got a clue, because we don't know who's going to be injured. We don't know who's going to be starting. We don't know if Eddie Howe's been saving Alexander Isak for this game. So if Alexander Isak is not playing, this is how I expect us to line up. And I think we'll go back to a back four with Botman and Dan Burn, because I think what he's going to look to do is push Tino Livramento on and revert to a back three when we're in possession. Playing Dan Burn at left back, it allows us to do that. So I expect Pope to start and goal, Tino at right back, Fabian Shaw, Botman at centre back with Dan Burn at left back. Tonali and Bruno in the midfield alongside Joe Willock. I want Bruno to play like he did for those opening 20 minutes against Arsenal, because I thought for 20 minutes, he was the best player on the pitch, and then we slowly died away. I want the players to leave everything on the pitch, have no regrets. So I want to see a high-intensity game for the full 90 minutes. This is the last game of the season, and Champions League football is on there. Not only will they play Champions League football next season, but they'll also get a good bonus if they win this game of football. And that should give them a massive incentive to really put everything out there, play with your heart on your sleeve, because we do that, again, we'll win this game of football. Expect Murphy on the right, Harvey Barnes on the left, and Anthony Gordon up front. But again, if Alexander Isak's fit, I expect Gordon to start, but also Alexander Isak to play up front. But in truth, I want to see a little bit more from Anthony Gordon. I think since he's come back from his suspension, he hasn't looked the same. And we've stood by the bloke. We've given him a lot of love. So let's show that love back to the fans. But the good thing about playing Everton in this game, one, they've got nothing to play for. And two, they're missing their best two centre-backs. Branthwaite is questionable, so he might still play, but I don't think he will. So if he doesn't play, this is how I expect Everton to line up. Pickford in goal, Young at right back, who can really get it. I know he's experienced, but he lacks that yard of pace now. O'Brien, if Branthwaite is fit, I expect O'Brien to play right back and Branthwaite to play centre-back. Keane at left centre-back alongside O'Brien with Makalenko at left-back. Gay Garner controlling the midfield with Doucouré just ahead of them, and Jai and McNeil and then Beto. Like I mentioned earlier, I expect Everton to use the width and put loads of crosses in, because Doucouré is a big lad, Beto is a big lad, and that's what David Moyes has been doing since he arrived at Everton, because their crosses per 90 is absolutely doubled. So I expect that from Everton. But look, we're the better team, like I mentioned earlier, and the game is in our hands. We play with intensity, play with the way we know how to play. We'll win this game of football, because I generally believe we'll have too much for Everton, whether that be physically just overrunning them or technically in possession. So with that in mind, with or without Alexander Isak, I think we win this game of football. I'm going Newcastle United 2, Everton 0. We get Champions League football. We enjoy the summer. Watch all the bodies and sensational signings coming in. I've done a ton load of scout reports on YouTube. So if you want to go and check them out, they're on my channel. And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm highlighting that we've got no excuses but to sign players, because there are so many players out there that could fit our system, that are young, hungry and room for improvement so we can develop them into better players. And that's what Eddie Howe is good at. But before you go, let's have one last look at this little beauty. Yes, that is she's a dime. You know what? I can see us lifting another trophy in this. Whether we defend the Carabao Cup, win the FA Cup, win the Champions League, win the Premier League, I don't care as long as we win a trophy. But look, guys, I want to hear from you guys. What do you expect from this game? What's your prediction for this game? And how do you think Eddie Howe will set up? One thing I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if Botman got dropped, Dan Burn starting at centre-back, Kraft at right back, and Tino Livramento at left back. I wouldn't be surprised to see that, but I kind of feel like he wants to revert to a back three in possession. And with Dan Burn at left back, it gives us our best opportunity to do so. So that's what I'm predicting. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Away the lads, just win one more game of football this season. Come on, the boys.